Hello, and welcome to Crossword Radio. This is your host, The Brain. It is Monday, October the 25th, 2021. And this is the New Yorker Crossword, as always. Full disclosure up front, I did this puzzle already. Messed up the recording a little bit. I'm still relatively new at this whole thing. So I can't post that video. There's no video to post, unfortunately. Well, not a coherent one. So I'll do it again. I will try not to just fly through it, try to explain some things. So let's get started here. Comic strip sound. Now I knew roughly, the realm that we were in, like thwack or kapak or whatever, something like that. But that I didn't start with it right away. What did I start with? I put in, this was my first filled answer. So giving great service is acing, because it's you can see it's a question mark, so it's some kind of pun. And we're not talking about like a waitress or a waiter giving you great service at a restaurant. We're talking about a tennis player serving greatly. So an ace is a serve that you don't return. So that is a great serve. And then this A, I was going to guess, I put in thwack, but it wasn't thwack. I think it was splat, if I were right. If I were a rich man. And this actually caused me in my first solve I couldn't find where my error was, so I did a check, and I just had made a typo, and I put in an I there by mistake. And that's what my answer was. I know the song. All day long, I'd bitty bitty bum. Anyway, great song, great movie, great show. But I just had made a typo. But if I were a rich man, yes, very famous song from that song from a very famous musical. Some sled dogs. Now this was Samoyeds. It's just a breed of dog. And then with the Samoyeds and the A in there, it was enough to get splat, which was the comic strip sound. An overture. We're not talking about a musical overture here. This is, the phrase that I've heard this used in is romantic overtures. Oh, he is making romantic overtures to that woman. So it's a proposal. And meet as expectations. I didn't get that quite right away, but a Universal product is a movie. We're talking about Universal Movie Studios. This is one of those classic hidden proper noun clues where you can see just by the general rules of the puzzle, the clues all start with a capital letter, and that gives them an opportunity to hide a proper noun in there. So you might think a universal product, a product that is available universally, it's available everywhere, but really we're talking specifically about the company Universal Movies here, or Universal Studios, or whatever the hell they're called. So with that V, meet as expectations, I was able to get live up to. Some tournaments are opens, of course. I don't really know what that means when you're talking about a tournament. What does it mean for an open tournament? What does that mean about the tournament? I'm not sure. This was, of course, the seasons. The spring movement of that oratorio, I'm pretty sure, has been used many, 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 many times. It's kind of the generic, go-to classical piece in movies. There's only a handful of those you hear all the time, like Eine kleine Nachtmusik or whatever, or the spring movement. Spreadsheet contents or data sets. Nothing too interesting there. Totals. This is, just a classic crossword trick. You always have to be thinking. Try not to get stuck on one particular definition of the word. Totals can be both a noun and a verb. Totals as in like mathematical totals, or to total to something, to add up to something, or to wreck. You talk about totaling your car or something like that. In this case, it is the adding up answer. It is amounts to. Slow-mo's a replay option there. Straightforward. artist with the site imaginepeace.com. I think I got this even before I had the seasons, but I think I had the O from amounts to. But anyway, there can only be one. Yoko Ono, perennial crossword inclusion there. I didn't know this, and this was not a name I was familiar with, so I had to get all the crosses pretty much to get this, so I won't do that now. But let's see, yearns for is lusts for. If something is understated, it is low key. Bit of a modern phrase there, not too crazy modern. Doll is just another, epithet you might call your spouse or a partner. Hun, a marsh denizen is a heron. Pretty straightforward there. Semi-aquatic salamander. Newt. I did look this up after the first time I did the puzzle. I was sworn that the New York Times had this exact clue. It was not quite exact, but extremely similar. In Sunday puzzle, just yesterday, the New York Times had semi-aquatic creature, and the answer was newt. And so this is semi-aquatic salamander, and the answer was newt. And that happens so often in puzzles, it feels like it can't be a coincidence. I mean, I'm guessing it is, just because of the different teams that are involved, but it's just crazy how often that kind of thing comes up where you have nearly identical clues for the same answer in a week. And newt is not even, a super common crossword word. It's not uncommon, but it's not, it's not Ono, it's not Oreo or anything like that. Place for a necklace clasp is your nape. That's the back of your neck. Scroll holders are arcs. This was just a phrase I'd never heard before, a quote, rather, I'd never heard before. You'll never be alone with a poet in your pocket. I don't even really get what that's saying. Carry a book of poems with you and you won't be lonely. I don't know. Ennio, again, it's another one I hadn't heard of. But with all the crosses I liked, so it had to be that. More or less. What was it? Now I can't even remember what this was. Well, yeah, it's good for the video, I guess. Well, this was iconic Oprah giveaway phrase. You get a car. Of course, everyone remembers that. It's been endlessly memed to death these days. Hereditary and Midsummer director, that was Ari Aster. Insincere as an argument is bad faith. A bad faith argument is insincere. You're making the argument for, even though you don't really believe the argument that you're saying, you're making the argument for other reasons. I'm sure lots of conservative politicians know about bad faith arguments, for example. Multiple choice options. This is kind of an interesting one. A, B, or C was the answer. I mean, to look at the word, it looks like abork. Obviously, that's not a real word, but A, B, or C. That's sort of part of the trick of regular crosswords compared to cryptic crosswords. If you're not familiar with how those work, I have a series. I do the cryptic that the New Yorker publishes every Sunday. You can go back and watch some of those. But the cryptic crosswords explicitly tell you not only when an answer is going to be more than one word, but exactly how many letters each word in the answer is. But that's something you just have to figure out and guess for yourself in regular crosswords. And that can be a bit of a, skill to learn is when can you expect multiple answers, or what multiple word answers, and what the common ones are. A, B, or C are certainly not a common multi-word answer, but is a bit of a tricky one. Oh, I don't remember this because this was not a movie I was familiar with. This was a pig ear. Animal part often used as a chewy dog treat. And with that, I was able to get enough of these crosses to get this movie. Baps, I guess, is what that was, because this is steered, but the way I got it when I first solved it was not much as a bit. Internet meme inspired the name of a cryptocurrency, of course, was Doge and Dogecoin. Available, something's available, it's free, is it not in use, and then took the helm. We have enough letters here now. That's definitely steered. Turn off and on, say, well, I can tell you that as an IT tech, reset. That's something we do a lot. Sybarites philosophy. Now, I didn't know what this was. Eventually, I got in most of the crossings and got that this was sensualism. I had some vague memory of a Sybarite being, like a lustful person, basically. Sensualism, a bit of a weird word there. You're not going to see that every day. Hang out is a den, so obviously not the verb to hang out with someone, to chill with them, but a hangout, like a place that you would hang out, which is be the den in a house. This was orzo. That was a little pasta that looks like little grains of rice. This one, this one. This answer was zaddy, slang term for an attractive, often older man with a certain je ne sais quoi. It's a word I've heard. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't want to know what it meant, frankly, but now I know what it means. Thank you, New Yorker. Fit for military service. Now, this is a weird one. 1A, you may have heard of that. I have not served in the military myself. Do I have any relatives who have served in the military? Maybe some like uncles or grandfathers or something. But anyway, this is a classification, like a draft classification. It's 1A. This I figured was something at. I couldn't quite get what this word was. I initially tried to put in rail at, but I didn't like it because of this double A. Actually, turns out that is correct, though. Paratha is a type of Indian flatbread. So naan, guess what, is another type of Indian flatbread. And then 16 across, for example, naan is a side. And this promotional phrase in an infomercial, on sale now. And I didn't remember that he was in The Aviator, but, you know, he's another one that just appears in crosswords all the time. So when you see a four-letter actor and you start getting some letters in there, you know, just go ahead and assume that it's Alan Alda. Not clerical, lay. So we're talking cleric as in a church. You know, sometimes someone made a clerical error, and that's sort of like an error with the numbers, or an error just like they misfiled the paperwork or something like that. But in this case, we're talking about church, and so if you are not a part of the clergy, you are lay. You know, laic is the adjective, so you might hear. Okay. Gentleman's disagreement. With the pun there, this is not, a gentleman's disagreement about something. It's just something you might say in a gentlemanly way. To disagree with someone is no, sir. Right. Realm of the canonized. I tried to put in sainthood. Of course, sainthood is too long. It's saintdom. If in the Catholic religion, when someone is canonized, they are made a saint. And this is just a little bit of a weird word here, saintdom, but that's what it is. This is not something I knew as a point of fact, but I got enough of the crosses eventually to realize this was going to be Botswana. This is something I still really don't get. Gym replacement, sub. I'm not sure what that's getting at. If you know, let me know. Ben-Hur, of course. Mercedes-Benz SLC, for example, is a type of car. This is a roadster. Like a Mazda Miata or something, a little small two-seater sports car, usually with a retractable roof. Abu Bakr. It's a name I had heard before. I filled it in, but then took it away because I wasn't sure. Although I should have left it filled in. I might have gotten sensualism earlier, but it is Abu Bakr is correct. Frankly, in text messages, TBH. This is one of those things where, young people don't actually use all these abbreviations, and it's always the older people that use those crazy text message abbreviations that they, always say, oh, texters speak, or in young person speak, blah, blah, blah. But they're the only ones that use those weird abbreviations. But that's to be honest is what that is. Soap, for example, we're not talking about soap that you clean with. We're talking about a soap opera that people often just refer to as soaps. And they are dramas. This I ended up actually having to look up. I filled these first, this kind of section, the first 2/3, pretty quickly and easily. And then this last third really struggled me out. I didn't know this name. It ends up being Todd Haynes. And Googling that, I was able to then break into this lower corner and then work my way up and around and off. So oftentimes if you're going to look something up and you want to kind of restrict yourself, it can be, you should pick one that's a strategic one, a good one to look up. Maybe one at the end or at the beginning of a lot of clues to give you the first letters or the last letters in this case, I didn't have one, but this was a nice long one and also easily look upable. Like I was really struggling on this one, but without just literally Googling those crossword answer websites, I don't know, couldn't think of any way to Google that to give a good answer. But it's like you just look up on IMDb who the director of that movie was. So turns out it's Todd Haynes. More or less, I still can't remember what that was. WAR or WHIP, those ended up being baseball stats. Not that I had ever heard of them. WAR was wins above replacement. So, like how many more wins do you expect to have by having this particular player than if you replaced him with some, the average player you think you could replace him with. And then WHIP was, I already forget, walks and hits per innings pitched, maybe. I think that was it. Right, it's more or less was sort of. There we go, finally remembered. Flubs it is ers or airs. This was Otessa. I didn't look it up, but I was able to get, neither all or none was some. Over yonder is afar, sort of a quaint term, just like afar is a quaint term. Here we go. This also took me a while to figure out until, of course, I remembered the Yiddish, Yenta. Yiddish comes up a lot in both the New York Times. It comes up less in the New Yorker. Yiddish comes up quite a bit in the New York Times, though. I mean, obviously, they're both, the New Yorker and the New York Times are both from New York. There's a big Jewish population there. So Hasidic is, not uncommon to come up, but there it is Yenta. This is another thing I got enough of the crosses, even though I, again, didn't know this fact that this person wrote it, but Mamet is just a playwright whose name I had heard before. Link in a chain. Oh, right, that was store, so we're talking about like a chain store, like an Ace Hardware or something like that. In due time. Creeps Cravings is a lech. It's a bit of a weird word, but you may have heard the phrase lecherous. So that's a lecherous person is craves a lech. That's Insecure. And Fios or Xfinity, again, as an IT tech, there's sometimes these technical clues. They miss the mark a bit. An ISP is an internet service provider. That was the answer. We're done, by the way. But Fios and Xfinity are not... They're just brands of services that Verizon and Comcast have. So really, Verizon is the internet provider. Comcast is the internet provider. And Xfinity is just a name for a brand of bundles and services that they have. But whatever. We'll give them this one. Alrighty. Well, sorry about the weird video today. I messed up the earlier recording, but like I said, I'm still relatively new at this. So... I'm not going to feel bad about getting one video wrong since I've started this and how many I've recorded since I've started. So, but anyway, it's a nice short one today rather than I think I was at 33 minutes when I solved the puzzle for the first time, or 34 minutes or something. So you didn't have to see me struggle through all that, luckily. Alrighty. This has been your host, The Brain, and I will see you Wednesday for their medium difficulty puzzle. All right. Thanks. Bye.